Before the pandemic, we used to meet up pretty much every year, traveling to different places and Asia together. Our last trip was to Japan, but that was way back in 2018. And then, of course, the pandemic happened, and all the restriction and made it very, very hard to travel. We haven't seen each other in person since then. So check my schedule. I took very, very hard to travel. We haven't seen each other in person since then. So I checked my schedule. I talked it over with my wife and I made a last minute decision to grab a flight to Jeju to catch up with my friend over the weekend. You're listening to bonus episode number 48 of the Culips English podcast. I'm your host and your English study buddy, Andrew. And in this episode, I'm gonna share this story of my short but sweet Jeju Island adventure that happened over the weekend. And then towards the end of the episode, I'm gonna teach you about a useful English expression that you hear me use while I'm telling the story. Now we've made a transcript for this episode and we're giving it away to everyone for free, no strings attached. Speaking of useful expression, that's actually a good one. No strings attached. It means that there are no hidden condition or captures. So the transcript then is totally free. There's no strings attached and you can get it in an interactive version that's great for smartphone, tablet or computer, or you can download it as a PDF and that's better for printing out. So to get the or you can download it as a PDF and that's better for printing out. So to get the transcript, just follow the link in the description or visit our website, which is culips.com. Okay, let's get to my Jeju Island story. So after checking my schedule and realizing that a quick Jeju trip was doable over the weekend, I quickly booked my ticket, got a hotel, and made a very rough travel itinerary. So after work, by the time I actually made it to Jeju, it was around 10 p.m. at night and slightly raining. Since I was only going for the weekend, I packed light and I brought I didn't bring an umbrella, so the rain wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. As I left the airport and I headed to the taxi line, I couldn't believe my eyes. The queue of people waiting for the cab stretched for at least 500 meters. It was not, there were so many people at the airport waiting for a taxi, even late at night, like that at around 10 p.m. So I realized that taking a taxi to the hotel would take forever, and my friend had already been traveling around Jeju for the week and he had checked into the hotel already and waiting for me. We planned to grab dinner together and he had checked into the hotel already and was waiting for me. We planned to grab dinner together, and since it was getting late because of the huge taxi line. I kind of was annoyed. I thought that taking a taxi would be the quickest option, but then once I saw that long taxi queue, it made me realize that it will probably take an over an hour just to catch a taxi. So instead of that, I opened the map app on my phone that I used when I'm checking for public transportation, and I found a bus that would take me almost exactly where I needed to go. Now my app said, and I found a bus that would take me almost exactly where I needed to go. Now my apps that the bus arriving soon. I turned around and I saw the bus was just pulling off to the bus stop. And at that moment, I had really good luck. The timing was perfect, and the right at the crosswalk turned green. I ran across the street. I just grabbed the bus in time, and 20 minutes later, I was at the hotel, and I was able to finally meet up with my friend. So I went up to the hotel room and I dropped my bag off, and my friend and I went outside to look around for something to eat. My friend mentioned that he'd already scoped out the neighborhood, he'd already walked around and checked it out, and he found a few restaurants that had good reviews that he was interested in trying. So we checked out those places, but unfortunately, it will all close. Now, Korea is actually famous for check out those places, but unfortunately, it will all closed. Now, Korea is actually famous for nightlife and 24 hours restaurants, and sometimes even stores are open 24 hours a day. So I felt that something would have been open, but I guess that's more common in the big cities. And it seems like after the pandemic, especially, many smaller restaurants have switched to more regular hour, and late night scene just isn't the same anymore. I actually could be wrong about that, but it just seems to be what I've noticed. And if you are Korean listening to I actually could be wrong about that, but it just seems to be what I've noticed. And if you're a Korean listening to this right now, please let me know if you agree or not. To be honest, I'm usually not out too late at night looking for dinner, so maybe I'm not the best person to comment on it. But anyways, my friend and I would trying to find place to eat for dinner, and finally at around 10:30 or so, we ended up stumbling across the barbecue restaurant that served grilled black pig, which is a local specialty of Jeju Island. And the doors are open, customers was eating, everything was good, so we decided to give it a shot, and it turned out to be a fantastic choice. The food was delicious, and we had a great meal while catching up and chatting about his trip so far. And it was the perfect way to start our Jeju Island adventure. So our itinerary for the trip has just two main goals. The first goal was hiking up Hallasan, which is the highest mountain on Jeju Island and in fact in all of South Korea. And the second goal was just to hang out and spend time together. When you're with an old friend you haven't seen in ages, doesn't really matter what you do. You could be doing anything and it's always a blast. So we plan to hike up Hallasan on Saturday. And although my friend and we are expert hikers, it is something that we enjoy doing, and we've done together in the past during that Japan trip that I mentioned earlier in 2018. During that trip, we actually hiked up Mount Fuji. We've done some other hikes together throughout Korea and Taiwan and of course Canada. And personally, I've also hiked Hallasan at least 3 or 4 times before. So I knew what we were getting into. Now the weather was fantastic when I arrived in Jeju, but it was supposed to clear up overnight, and the forecast said that the next morning would be gorgeous. So we agreed that hiking up the mountain would be a fantastic way to spend our days. The mountain is just a little bit under 2,000 meters tall, and the hike is around 20 kilometers round trip. So it's not easy, but it's not too intense at the same time. Actually, we decided that we were going to go hiking a little earlier in the week. I think it was around Wednesday or Thursday, and when I told my wife this plan, she asked me if we had made a reservation to go hiking. And I answered no. Why would I do that? Why do you need a reservation? I guess someone recently there's been a reservation system implemented on Hallasan. Now you need to make a reservation before you can hike up the mountain. When I had a hike up Hallasan previously, you didn't need to do that. So this was something new, and I suddenly freaked out a little bit, like, oh my god, I didn't make a reservation. What happened if we can do this? That would be such a bummer because it would be so fun to hike up the mountain. So I went to the reservation website and tried to book a spot for Saturday. And of course, there were no spots left. And I told my friend at that time that we probably need a new plan, since all the slot for the one day that we could actually do the hike. But I didn't give up. I kept trying to make a reservation throughout Wednesday and Thursday, and finally on Thursday evening a slot opened up. I guess maybe somebody canceled. I don't know exactly what happened, but I was able to make a reservation to go hiking on Hallasan on Saturday on Thursday night. So it was perfect timing. So we had a reservation in place, and our plan for the day was to hike up the mighty Hallasan on Saturday. So while we were eating dinner, we discussed exactly what our schedule was gonna be like for the next day. And my friend mentioned at that time that he needed to get a PCR COVID test before we went on our hike. So as I mentioned earlier, my buddy lives in Shanghai, and to go back there, he would need to improve the negative test before he would be allowed to board his flight. So this was great. It guided us through, because Hallasan is a serious mountain and it takes a long time to we are only able to reserve later start at 10 a.m. and there is a rule on the mountain that you must leave the peak of the mountain by 2 p.m. So I was worried that, okay, the next day we're going to have to wake up and we're going to have to go to the hospital to get a PCR COVID test for him. Maybe the hospital won't open until 9 a.m. and then we'll finish it, who knows, let's say 10 a.m. and then we'll get to the mountain by 11 a.m. and we're gonna have to run up the mountain to get down in time. And I was worried that the timing just might not work out. So at the restaurant there, we both pulled out our phones and started doing some Googling and looking for hospital that would open earlier in the morning so we could go and get the PCR test. And I didn't feel very confident about us being able to find a solution to this problem. But it turns out that there was a testing station at the airport that's open 7 days a week, 365 days a year. opening at 7 a.m. So yes, thank you to the airport for having this little clinic set up right there. So that was a huge relief because when we were thinking about our schedule for the next day, I thought it was like we could go to the testing center by maybe 8 a.m. We can complete the test and make it to the start of the hiking trail by 10 a.m. just in time or our reservation. So our worries were out of the way. We found relief. We got everything sorted out and we finished up our meal. And then after our meal, we went to a nearby supermarket to buy some snacks and supplies for our hike the next morning. In case you're curious what we brought with us on our hike, we bought some water. Of course, we got some cookies, chocolate bar, and two local special peanut from a little island of the coast of Jeju-do, which is called Udo. And then we also got a variety of oranges that are grown on Jeju called halabong. So we got some oranges, some peanuts, and some other snacks. We are all geared up for the hike. Actually, one of my favorite things about doing hike like this is that you get to pick out a little bit and eat some junk food, and it's kind of okay because you can. I need energy for the hike, so yeah, we did. But we got the peanut and the oranges and the healthy snacks as well, and we were ready to go. So we went back to our hotel to get some rest for the big day of hiking ahead of us. And originally we were planning to just go to sleep right away so that we could be nice and rested and refreshed or the hike the next morning. But that didn't really end up happening. Like I said earlier, we are really good friends and we haven't seen each other for ages and we had lots to catch up on. So when we got back to the hotel room, we didn't go to bed right away, but we just stayed up and we are hanging out for a little while longer, chatting, watching some videos on our phone, and just doing things that friends do. Well, a little while longer turned out to be both of the night, and when we finally said, oh my gosh, it's getting late, we need to go to bed. At that point, it was already past 4 in the morning, and then my friend and I, we are like, really go to sleep? Do we really go to sleep? If we go to sleep now and we have to wake up in only a couple of hours, we will probably feel even worse. Like we'll be super groggy and will be difficult to wake up and get going on our hiking trip. And we are both like, wow, what should we do? What should we do? And at that point we just decided to stay up all night to not get any sleep. We are feeling pretty energetic, I guess, to be up there late at night anyways. So that's what we decided to do. We had some coffee. We stayed up all night, and in the morning when the clinic was open, then we took a taxi from our hotel to the airport so my friend to get the PCR test and get ready for his trip back home to Shanghai. So we arrived at the airport, we got the test out of the way, and by the time everything was finished there doing that was already past 9 in the morning, and then we took a taxi to the trailhead because taking a bus would be taking too long. So we took a taxi and we arrived. Timing is perfect. We arrived right at 10 in the morning, just in time to the 10 a.m. reservations. Now, as the weather forecast predicted, the weather was gorgeous that morning, and we had an amazing hike up the mountain. To be honest with you, the first 75% of the hike wasn't really too challenging. The trail well maintained, there's wooden board work, so it wasn't so bad. We passed through the beautiful nature on the mountain, and we even spotted a deer, which I think in English we call the roe deer, and maybe in Korean it's called noru, I think. I'm not 100% sure though, because it was pretty camouflaged in the forest, but we did see it, which is cool because you don't see wildlife in South Korea too often, especially larger mammals like a deer. So I was really happy to see that deer in the forest there from the side of the trail. That was the special treat. So yes, we made it up most of the mountain with no problems. And before the final leg of the journey, we stopped at a rest station or for real break. We had some snacks, drink some water, and got ready for the final ascent to the top of the mountain. So the final 25% of the hike was a lot more challenging in the first part, and the path was a lot steeper and rockier, and the rain from the previous day made the trail quite sleepy. But despite this, we did make it to the top, and once we got to the top, the weather actually turned pretty bad. It got windy, cold, and it was really cloudy. We didn't spend too much time at the summit, and we started our descent really right away because there was nothing to see at the top. It was like so cloudy. Unfortunately, that couldn't see anything, which is really shame because the view of the top of the mountain is gorgeous, and I wanted to show that to my friend. And we couldn't see anything. Essentially, we just filled up some snacks quickly and then made our way down the mountain again. Descending the mountain was terrible. It was much harder going down than it was going up. It was slow, and the path was so steep and wet and rocky, but we made it, and it ended up taking about, I guess, 5.5 hours around trip, and during that time we covered 1,200 meters of climbing. The total hike was around 18 kilometers long. When we arrived at the bottom of the mountain, you can imagine that we felt pretty good for having completed the hike, and we were happy to get out of the cold and the wind, and most importantly, we were happy that we could go back to our hotel and take a nap because we were quite tired. So we took a bus back to where our hotel was, and we were in one of those situations where we were really hungry and really tired at the same time, and we debated while we were riding the bus, what should we do? Should we first and then take a nap, or should we take a nap first and then eat?